I greet with grace all those compatriots of our love who have, through the centuries, scattered as they are with the dust of human emotion and uncontrolled feelings, understood the need to appropriate from the hand of God infinite strands of peace between the ravages of war. For war, mankind is not alone an action of rocket and gun and the destruction of mortal life. There is a war between the members of each one's own body, so that mankind are often at war with themselves. Therefore, as I come this day to strike a blow for God and freedom, I am appealing to the mankind of earth to understand the need to have wars cease within the human spirit and being. Unify then the endeavors and thoughts of thy own heart, that as the human monad comes to a degree of compassionate understanding of the holy strands of self woven intricately within the threefold and fourfold body of man, you will understand that there are many subtleties located within the confines of being, so much so that the visible portion of your life is indeed but a small portion of that grandeur of the soul, which is not a canyon of decay and debauchery, but is a mountain peak of attainment and hope. There is always, precious ones, some danger attendant upon the climb, so that as one starts out with a heart full of aspiration, one must take care, for the yawning chasms are ever before. And yet I do not feel that men and women of brave hearts would shrink from their responsibility on behalf of the holy cause of freedom. I think rather that you would choose to sublimate your own intellect, to sublimate your own feelings, to sublimate your own human mortal consciousness to the great divine ideal, that you might be a part of the vanguard of light's expansion upon the planet Earth. For Terra has indeed suffered almost ultimate destruction if you were to assess it from the standpoint of the fractures of the human spirit through the centuries. Mankind have often suffered far greater than they have revealed, and their suffering has caused them great distress of being. Concealment, of course, within the folds of being has prevented them from communicating these situations to one another, and they have thought perhaps by secrecy to minimize all that they have thought and felt. But I ask you this afternoon, what is the cause of all this mortal suffering so completely foreign to the consciousness of God, who would bestow the great crown of beauty and self-mastery upon all life? What is the cause, precious ones? Does it not lie within the domain of separatism? I think you must acknowledge it, for separatism means that you, the great I, are separated from being, which is the M, and you are not expressing then the reality of the unified whole, I am, but are expressing only the portion of the ego. That portion, precious ones, which you so firmly identify with then, is the house builded upon the sands. And as the rains came, and as the storm threatened and blew, it tottered down this house of sand, and destruction was the result. Everyone then who builds foolishly builds upon the shifting sands of mortal experience. But all those who build wisely build upon the domain of Christed self-intelligence, where the great strands of holy wisdom, woven into the fiber of the mind, saturate the soul with hidden strength and well springs from on high, to give to each one then a special opportunity at the hour of need that will suffice them at that hour to reach over the yawning chasms of human consciousness into the security and beauty of the arms of God. Now then, precious ones, to be held in the arms of God is the aspiration of man. But in one sense it is very true that as a parent holds a child, so God desires to hold the infant humanity which he has fostered. But as a parent yearns to see the child grow up and manifest the mastery of his manhood, so it is the will of God to see individuals assert self-mastery. And therefore there are moments, precious ones, when life itself seems to retreat and recede from the fount of being, in order that you may pass through a miniaturization of the great final test, when, as the Christ upon the cross, you may seem to be forsaken of all life, that you may stand the test of time, the great cosmic test, and see whether or not all of the victories which you have won are sufficient to merit your being lifted up into the glory of resurrection and ascension. Precious ones, the great cry which the Christ gave, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" is also then uttered by mankind along the path as he feels the vacancy of his own temple when forsaken momentarily by the great power of light, only in part, precious ones, in order that you may build strength so that you can demonstrate your own self-mastery as God intends it to be. This then is not always the holding of the child in the parent's arms, but it is the guiding of the child, the strengthening of the child's limbs, and the strengthening of mankind's wings of victory that will descend upon him as he understands the divine plan which would make of the fledgling an eagle to fly high in the upper atmosphere, where the rarefied airs may not be so strong as that near the surface of the earth, but are able to give a great inner action of divine pneuma, the air of God, purified from human thought and feeling, saturated with the radiance of the great solar fires of the Holy Spirit, the regenerative power from on high, which descends and assuages mankind's involvement in all that is less than perfection. For I recognize full well this day how that many of you have been taken down at times into the very dregs of the cup of mortal imperfection, that you may be able to see, as Dante did, the great inferno of mortality and all that is brought upon mankind by reason of attitudes of destruction. Then, precious ones, when you are freed from that and arise on the wings of the Spirit into the freedom of the upper atmosphere, the great consciousness of God, it is our hope that you will desire to no longer become enmeshed in the strands of mortal reason, especially that reason which is involved in human fallacy and mistakes and judgment and errors. You see, precious ones, the light of God which never fails, which is within you, is the sustaining radiance of being. But each one must understand, not by intellect alone, but by holy experience, that God would have man become overcomers, and overcomers in the holy name of freedom, of whatsoever condition binds them to the wheel of mortality and rebirth. For the great law of God in freeing mankind from mortal embodiment would not do so except it were to raise him into a higher state of evolvement. Mankind, however, because of familiarity and contempt for that which they do not understand, are often their own worst enemies, and sometimes, in fact, many times do bring about their own destruction by their wrong attitudes of fear pertaining to holy wisdom and all that holy wisdom can do. Do you know, precious ones, many years ago, your beloved Moria spoke of mankind having gingerly stepped upon the rocks of experience, and I think that that was a very good statement on his part, for mankind will never fear, precious ones, to accept from other individuals, even human reason, those statements made by mankind which seem wholly reasonable to the thinking mind. But when they are confronted with the great holy truths of being, which are often most subtle in their revelation, they sometimes seem to shrink from the great revelation which God is vouchsafing to them in his love, as though they feared that God did not know or comprehend himself all that he would do for mankind. Now, precious ones, let me make clear that I am not here this afternoon to condemn you or to condemn mankind for these attitudes. Do not forget, precious ones, that I also have walked among you. Do not forget that I also have worn a body such as you wear. Do not forget that I have felt the pangs of mortal concepts, and I know full well every stone upon the path that could be a stone of stumbling. Yet I am unable, with all of my wisdom which God has given to me, to completely take control of mankind's own destiny. For this is not the plan of God, that I should take control of their destiny, but rather that they should submit themselves unto the keeping of their own God presence, that presence then should guide them into the byways and highways of freedom. You may say to me, why do you say byways of freedom? Well, precious ones, I recognize full well that there is a great mainstream of cosmic thought into which mankind should step and move forward in the light. But I also wish to point out that there are special avenues and dispensations given by Almighty God to certain individuals, whereby they are able to externalize some magnificent facet of life which will be a great blessing to the entire planet, yet somewhat removed from the mainstream of cosmic thought and progress. Therefore, you see, precious ones, it is not always necessary that you should feel that every individual should fit the exact mold of your own concepts pertaining to spiritual advancement. For some have a special assignment from on high and from God, which is just a little bit different than that which is given to the many. However, I do think, and I wish to say this in one sense of the word almost sternly, that mankind should recognize that there are certain, pardon me, precious ones, earmarks of divine thought which ought to be attached to all who would manifest the purity of the God design. And those earmarks pertain to the righteousness of God within the human spirit, the justice of God within the human soul, the definite action of the light which will flash forth from all who have this spirit, so that you, if you will attune with your own mighty I am presence, will be able to confirm the presence of that which is acting in such a one. And those who are outside of the field of light's action, by reason of their own thoughts and feelings, would do well to come in out of the rain and recognize that the great light of God that does not and cannot fail is able to heal every chaos, every breach, every bit of fear in their world, and show them that the light of God that never fails will take them every step of the way, so long as they will hold on to the hands of their divine being, and will fear not to expand the power of freedom over the entire earth. You know, precious ones, there is an individual action of the light, and there is also a collective action of the light for mankind. Many do not seem to understand how that man may be ever so complete in himself as pertains to the microcosm of being, but he is absolutely incomplete as pertains to the macrocosm of being unless he is able to identify spiritually with the great tides of freedom that sweep the earth and the universe. Do you see, precious ones, then, how that you may be content to make a certain spiritual advancement within yourself? And this is a very definite need. But you must also recognize that planetary progress is tied to the great macrocosmic tides of life, which sweep over the earth to attempt to prevent the action of the brothers of the shadow, who have sought to prevent me this day from directing unto you the holy energies of my being, which are for the purification of mankind and for the upliftment of the souls of men. They have sought this day to prevent the release of these words and of my vibratory action. They have also sought to instill fear and the vibration of restlessness and distress into others. Yet I hope that all of you will recognize that these actions from the human standpoint and from the nefarious attitudes of the black magicians who desire to interfere with the divine plan is such that it has no power in our world whatsoever. See then that it has no power in yours, and all will be well. For it is always necessary that men shall understand that they have a certain authority in their own worlds, and they have a responsibility which cannot be given to another. Let all then recognize that they are the authority for their own world, that they are the authority of freedom for their own world, that if they determine that they will be free, then they will be, and there is no power in the universe that can interfere with that. However, when individuals continue to revert back into an old cesspool of human thought and feeling, which has plagued them far too long, the law will always act, and they will manifest the soot or the dirt or the residue of sandy substance that is located within this sink pool of human thought and feeling. You see then, precious ones, that mankind must understand that the law does not err, that it is mankind that errs, and in their error they sometimes would like to convey the impression that another individual is responsible for their own ills. I would like to point out that the law is absolutely just in all of its aspects, and never at any time has the law ever erred in this system of worlds or upon any other. However, mankind, I admit, have some justification if they are to observe the appearance world for having wrong attitudes. But after all, we have admonished you again and again and told you that you ought not to look upon the outer things of life, but to gaze with inward eyes upon the purity of the spirit, so that you may see and understand how that each individual is responsible for his own purification. This is quite logical and wholly pure and reasonable in every respect, both from a spiritual and outer world standpoint. The legerdemain of the cosmic, however, seems to be less clear to mankind than that of the outer, and yet mankind never seemed to cease to be amazed at what we may call the ignorance of mankind concerning his own affairs. Well, precious ones, if mankind are ignorant concerning their own affairs, and I refer here to secular activities, you can well understand how that some among mankind will also be ignorant about spiritual activities which are part of the invisible world. Now, the invisible world is not always hidden to all, and some of you are given the power of spiritual inward sight, and therefore you are able to see that I have elected this afternoon to bring 3 Maltese crosses into this room with me and fix them in a certain position in the upper atmosphere in order to provide a pathway of light and electrodes of light for a certain cosmic action which will be instituted this evening by our beloved Moria L in the holy interest of freedom for this planet and her evolutions. Now, there were certain powers then that sought to prevent the release of this message, not so much for its worded content or for its radiation, but for the fixing of those 3 Maltese crosses, which will give a special action. For you see, precious ones, the 3 crosses have 4 angles coming out from them, 4 wings of the cross, and this totals to 12. and the 12 then squares to 3, which is a significant number by the power of the 3 times 3 of that which will be performed. Some of you are aware then how that beloved El Morya often affixes after his signature of M 3 small dots. And these dots then, which are used also in certain outer fraternities, have a much greater significance to the great Master Morya. Therefore, I think it will be to your interest to remember this afternoon as I am speaking to you, not only now, but later, how that there is always a great residue of human conversation which takes place whenever a group of people come together for these specific conventions and classes. Now, precious ones, this means a sharing of mortal opinion, so that individuals come together and they make the acquaintance of one another, and in a gracious way they enter into a certain spirit of friendship, which does have some meaning to you who are yet unascended. However, quite frequently during the course of these conversations, there is a certain pulling down action whereby the human thought and feeling comes to ride in over the dictations which you have received, simply because you forget the words of the dictation and you forget the spiritual uplift of the dictation in the involvement in mortal conversation. Now, I hope that none of you will go away and report that Saint Germain has forbidden you to engage in human conversation. Precious ones, it is this that I would convey to you this afternoon, that you must come to a point where you are able to recognize by a just and pure perspective what is important for your soul's evolution and what is relatively unimportant for your evolution here, down below, or above. Do you see, precious ones? Mankind are so frequently the victims of hoaxes practiced innocently enough upon themselves that I often fear to pour a great residue of spiritual energy into the chalice of a certain chela for fear that it will be dissipated before it touches the bottom of the cup. Do you see, precious ones, why I am conveying this to you? It is in the interest of your holding and retaining that vibratory action of the Spirit of Almighty God which carries you upward and is the wings of your freedom. You see, precious ones, your freedom is not distilled from the criteria of mortal experience, but is brought about by an acceptance of the pressure of the great light energy that is within your heart, as it seeks to reunite with that great primordial spiritual substance that is above, which must then be qualified by the incoming radiance of the descending essence of the sacred fire, the divine Fohat from on high. Precious ones, I realize that in my words there is a certain mystique whereby I do not expect all of you shall capture in 1 second all that I am conveying in these words. This is why, precious ones, the words that are given forth in these dictations are often put in print, and I would to God that more of them were, so that certain misunderstandings which sometimes come about as the students begin to discuss the dictations would not come about, for they would be able to have a printed copy as they walked out the door. I think, precious ones, that this may be possible in some future time, but at the present time you must console yourselves, if you need to do so, with the attitude that I am here, and with the attitude that I am also within you in one very real sense, as a part and parcel of the flame of freedom. And I am sure that some of you have thought, as you have contemplated your own passing from the screen of life, how that with the outflow of the spiritual energy of your being into the cosmos, a little portion of yourself would perhaps mingle and commingle with mankind here unascended below, so that you would have some influence in molding the future for mankind as the thought energy of God had manifested through you before your ascension. Well, precious ones, if you feel this way, and there is a certain element of truth in it, then I ask you to ponder and consider honesty of thought. For would you like to leave the distorted images of mortal concepts which some presently have and share down here upon this planet? I think you would not. Precious ones, I want to call your attention that there are among our brethren ascended any number of individuals who have left some human residue below, in the sense that they had emitted certain thought and feeling which was below the standard of the ascended masters prior to their ascension, and they are still redeeming them this very moment. Precious ones, this is wholly in keeping with cosmic law, for there is not one jot or tittle of the law that has ever been wrong. Yet you see, O mankind of earth, the ascension is given to mankind when they are ready, yes, but sometimes in advance, simply because the great goddess of mercy, Kuan Yin, intercedes for an individual who has tried very greatly to win their ascension, and for some little reason has failed. And there are times when individuals then are given the ascension as a special dispensation, with the understanding, of course, that they will at inner levels clear up every blot upon the record of their life stream, and that as speedily as the great law will permit. This is wholly in keeping with the great law of God, for it is not God's will to have mankind imprisoned. How many times do you think, precious ones, we have interceded for some individual upon this planet who was castigated by mankind and cast into prison for things which they did not commit? Well, precious ones, I will go one step further, and I hope that you will not think that I have cast my lot in with thieves when I tell you that we have also saw to it that certain individuals have gone free when they were guilty from prison, simply because they had exhibited in the great spiritual temple of their being not only the necessary remorse, but the qualities that were pleasing to God and the masters, that indicated to the karmic board that they ought to go free. And therefore we have interceded with God for many. Precious ones, understand then that life does not wish you to be miserable. Understand that life does not want you to be sad. Understand that life does not want you to be in any way unhappy. For life is a glorious and grand opportunity when the domain of infinity comes very close to the finite realm and causes you to appreciate in proximity that which you will one day share with every drop of your being. Do you understand how that every drop of your being, the very essence of your life, you will one day be able to feel God? At this moment, if God were to bring the pressure of his infinite love into contact with that being, O holy ones to be, you would evaporate as a drop of water in a fiery furnace. You could not endure, and there would be naught of you that would exist. Therefore the great law of mercy has tempered to the shorn lamb of man's identity the winds of spiritual reason, and God has ministered unto mankind by the power of his love. And therefore the experiences you bear that sometimes seem thorns can be changed to roses to adorn. You can understand how that the great love ray from on high is intended to lift mankind, not to cause him to be submerged. After all, precious ones, you ought to examine that word a little better. What does submerge mean, precious ones? Sub is subordinate, yea, but sub also means beneath, and merge means to mingle. You see, precious ones, that mankind has not only been subnormal from a spiritual standpoint, but they have also mingled their subnormalities with one another, so that they have reinforced their own foolishness. And therefore, mankind have inflicted great torture upon mind and being, which has been wholly unnecessary. I come to you this afternoon in the holy name of freedom to see that there is a cessation of that activity, that you open as a flower the very fount of your being to God and say, here I am, Father beloved, take me and hold me by the hand, and let thy law hold my other. Hold me by the hand and see that I understand that every man is my brother, and yet not my brother to mislead and deceive, but my brother to lead the right way into the purity of belief in Almighty God, that faith which transcends the darkness of mortal ages and is the light of infinite ages. Do you see, precious ones, then, how that by the power of love, that which is written upon the pages can be erased? For long ago, when Omar Khayyam stated, the moving finger writes, and having writ moves on, and all thy piety and wit cannot cancel out a line of it, it was not a statement intended to indicate that the great law of God was such as to bind mankind down to his wrong actions, but rather to show the purity of the law, that that which is written and will be. You see, mankind, when you write upon the pages of life that which is not true, that which is not proof of the ages, it will come back to you for retribution and redemption, that you may be free from that forever. And the action of redemption, the action of the recoil, the action of the return is a mercy to life, for each man must bear the burden which he himself has created. Yet all shall share in the great power of God and his freedom. For as the world arises and each one contributes their own widow's mite to the great rising spiritual power, I think then that all will come to a place where they will appreciate a great deal more that which they have given than that which they have received. Down here below, one of the greatest causes of human distress is because individuals do not receive that which they think they ought to and to which they think they are entitled. Very frequently, precious ones, anger rises in the hearts of men because someone does not recognize them or pay them proper heed. I would like to point out to you that this is a byway of illusion, for mankind are often self-seekers, and yet this is because they have not sought the self, the real self, with all of their heart, but they have somehow sought in the mortal illusion to find in outer experience some of the treasures that can only be found in the inner experiences of the heart. Therefore, the pathway to freedom lies in relinquishing the great stranglehold that mankind have upon their own life and saying to their life, "You are my life, but you are God's life, and you were God's life before you were mine. You are my life, but because you are God's life, you are free. You are my life, but because you are God's life, you cannot be subjugated to any form of monopoly, except it be the manifestation of the great monotheistic being of God himself. You are my life, but because you are God's life, I would plunge into thee headlong and be immersed in thee. I would cast my all into thee, O my life, for thou art not only sweet, but thou art rare, and thou art filled with the nectar of opportunity. Thy nectar, then, is that which the gods have quaffed, and they have quaffed it, and they have grown thereby to a stature that overtowers the earth and all mortal existence. That which they are has reached across the span of the centuries, and that which you shall be, O my life, shall also span the great centuries of existence without end. Therefore I shall not be involved in mortal reason and all of its turmoil, but I shall claim my freedom this day under God. I shall assert that freedom not only for myself, but for my fellow men. I shall assert that freedom not only for myself, but for my nation. I shall assert that freedom not only for my nation, but for my planet. I shall assert that freedom not only for this planet, but for this system of worlds. And I shall assert that freedom is mine, mine to be and mine to claim, mine to see my claim to fame. Mine is God's life, I am his own, and this great power for all error shall atone, until the wisdom that God has given shall be recognized as the great strands of light to heaven. And thus men shall rise, climbing bold, never fearing his love to hold, and to see that God's freedom will mold that which shall be, until they too with me can see, can be all that I am and all that I shall be, saying together in complete harmony, I am freedom. I am freedom. I am freedom. I thank you, and I toss all that I hold in consciousness to El Moria, who shall carry the ball in this game for you all this evening. I thank you, keepers of the flame, one and all. goes to you this morning from the heart of God, gentle and as the cooing of a gentle dove. Are the entreaty of our words spoken to your hearts, to call unto you, to hear the power of the love of God as it expresses in a perfect and natural order unto the souls of men, generating in them awareness enhanced by the power of love concerning that creation which through the fault of the human mind and its error has created veils of shadowed substance, through which the beautiful light of God finds difficulty in penetrating, for it will not pass the screen of man's free will choosing. And if individuals desire to clothe themselves with the substance of gross mortal concepts, the great law of heaven will act, and their minds will become oppressive dungeons, wherein at times they call for a penetrating ray of immortal light substance to blaze forth some ray of hope. Now ours is a cosmic adventure. We have long been freed from the thraldom of the senses. We have long ceased to be lured by the loves of outer desire. I recall full well, however, from the great screen of memory, how as a youth in Assisi, when embodied as St. Francis, I did hear that call, and did rush forth in hot pursuit of that which I supposed to be a tender joy. I supposed then that as a blossom of the morning, the romance of the outer world and all that I beheld around me would contain some celeste moment that would endure forever. As time passed, and I sipped the nectar from every bud of mortal pleasure, I became increasingly aware that all was a pit of desire that was never satisfied. And then, one day, all of the teachings of the church seemed to me for a moment as though they were untrue. And for a moment I lost faith both with God and with man. I lost faith with myself. And as upon the brink of despair I contemplated doing away with my life and casting myself over a precipice. But then the great power of holy faith, the great power of holy love, the awareness of the power of the sun and the beauty of the celestial blue of the sky came into my heart. It was as though the love of God did come in stealthily. And while I slept, for one morning as I awoke and saw the rays of the dawn penetrating through the curtained window, I hasted to withdraw the blind and gaze upon it. And then there was a great stirring within, and I felt as though a fire were alive within my heart. And I recalled how that certain pictures of the saints had depicted a flame within the heart. And I pondered and contemplated upon it, as to whether I, a poor boy of Assisi, could indeed have a flame within my heart. But it did not take me long to realize that something had taken hold of me, and that something was not akin to the vibratory action of the senses. I knew that it did not bring me the self-same feeling of attendant guilt with which I viewed my meanderings into the sewers of Assisi, and my activities of making merriment with the youth of that city. And so it came to pass that I gazed anew upon the concepts of God as portrayed by those who were expounding the holy word of writ. And so, in my gaze upon this with a newness of thought, I found that old ideas burst into flame and came into a sense of loveliness to my mind. My heart was enthralled, and I suddenly realized that the reality of God stood behind the veil of appearances, in my mind and in my heart. I realized that the power of God was behind others also, and some and many knew it not. And yet the vanity of human reason could not contain the great sacred power of God and his love. And so, with the passage of time, I came to revere what most men think to be simply innate objects having no life of their own. The sand trickling through my fingers became the crystal light of stars, as of eternity, and I came to behold the animals, the little creatures of field and forest, as animated by God's love in a lesser way, and I called them brother. And then my heart was filled with immortal love toward my fellow men, and though I knew from inward direction that they could not see as I did, or know that which I knew, I saw and perceived that the light of God was expanding through me and through my being. And so I prayed for them. And we builded an order, and we builded a church, and we builded a holy ideal. And that ideal expanded down through the centuries of Christendom and remains to the present day, holding certain instructions for those novitiates privileged to truly understand that which God taught unto me. And yet today, as I come to you, blazing a trail through the centuries, through the sifting and changing sands of time, the self-same shoals of human creation remain. And the youth of the world today are faced with the same problems that existed in the great streets of Assisi long ago. And today the world is larger, and the domain has increased, and yet the same stealthy action of mortal ideas continues to fill the hearts of men, and the clouds of hatred, and the clouds of fear, and the clouds of unknowing, and the clouds of confusion cause many to ask, whither am I going? I know full well this idea. I know full well this feeling that enters into the heart of any who truly ponder the universe and the meaning of life. Such as these are not content, nor can they ever be content with the paltry gifts of the senses, which pass away and do not bring the supreme boon of happiness and contentment. For contentment lies in the great power of regeneration. Contentment lies in the power to invoke from every passing bush and flower some answer, as a light ray pierces forth from the heart and touches and contacts the outer frame of a bush, of a cupped blossom, of the tenderness of nature. There is a return current from the tiny elemental being ensouled therein, or surrounding the aura of a group of flowers or trees or bushes. And so mankind becomes aware of the inward power of the Spirit within substance and within self, and more pertinently, that which is within self. And so now, as I address you today, I think of the youth of the world, and I realize a fact that I must make plain to you all, how that some of you, by reason of mortal senses, have conceived of yourselves as not youth of the world. You feel that you are mature, and you feel that the hoary head of age rests upon you, and you feel that because of the passage of time you no longer belong to ascended Master Youth. Let me say unto you that in the eyes of God, all chelas everywhere of the great ones are ascended Master Youth. For you have not yet obtained your full maturity, have you? Are you not, by comparison to the divine ideal, but children of his heart? If you are then children of the heart of God, you are also imbued with the spirit of eternal youth, and would come under the rod of his power, the domain of his precepts, and the hearing of his holy word. When you hear that holy word, if there is a response of holy wisdom functioning within your being, your heart will leap then with the fervor of his flame, and you will feel, as sheep of his pasture, the desire to know him more intimately than to know your fellow men. For he who knows God knows his fellow men, and those who know the flowers of the field know the power that is behind the beauteous manifestation of outer form and vestment. But mankind, in the holy name of wisdom, so often fatally gaze upon creation and cognize it with the outer sense, that is so dull-witted as to scarcely recognize truth when perceived before the screen of the mind. And thus today, to youth and age alike I say, ye are all children of the one God, and ye are all but youth in his eyes. For if you have externalized a little of the circlet of divine wisdom, which comes from his heart as a golden flame, 'tis but a little, and not infinity. And you must hold it as most dear and sacred, whereas many, to whom is given great and holy precepts of truth, cast them aside as into a treasure cask, and there it becomes a treasure of unknowing, scarce externalized, and the children of the light say continually, let us hear more, or we have heard that before. Precious ones, that which is heard with the ears, which enters into the heart and becomes action, this is a jewel, worn upon the being, and utilized in the service of the angels and of the great ones on high. But that which is heard, or that which is read, and scarce remembered, I quote these words, remember thy Creator in the days of thy youth. That which is heard then and is not used is cast into a cask of forgetfulness, as I said before, and there it reposes while the soul seems satiated with our words, but scarcely cognizes the meaning thereof. The meaning is a flame, and illumination is a flame, and when it is vitally cognized, it produces on the screen of the appearance world the great virtue which is inherent within the one who cognizes, who understands, who comprehends, who enters into that spirit of holy truth. Words in themselves, when they are emptied of meaning, when they are spoken as hollow mockery, they do not embody the flame. when the flame of life is inherent within those words, they vitalize, they actualize, they visualize, they externalize. They are the face and power of God in action in the individual identity of man. Now then, while I speak to you of life, of nature, of God, and of man, and of yourselves, I hold up to you a little clay incense burner, and I point out to you that it is but a symbol of your physical self and the appearance world. Now we place within it a bit of aloe or myrrh or some fragrant scent, and we ignite it with flame. And so the fragrance pours forth from our little burner and rises into the air and creates a sweet scent, the odor of flowers to those who are near and those who are far. Scents, if the spirit be developed, some rising spiral of precious hope, anointed by the balm of the flowers. Realize then, O mankind, that thy body form is but a small creation of thy vast self. Realize that it is but a small creation of thy great God identity. For within thee is a flame, and that flame is life. That flame is rising. That flame is pulsating. That flame is generating reality. Unfortunately, the soot and the smoke given off as unhappiness by mortal men is the result of their anguish of spirit when they find that they cannot command happiness by the power of outward reason or by the power of outward seeking for joy in life. For joy is a quality of God, and without God that flame is covered over with the decomposition of mortal energies, and it creates the blackness and the sootiness that pours forth in the chimneys of life and brings forth unhappiness and banality. As I speak to you then today, I advocate a clean burning flame, a flame such as Christ and the great saints of his heart manifested. This flame is pure. It is white. It contains the colors of the rainbow. It is an unfed flame. It is immortal life. It is a God flame. It is the God flame. It is your God flame. You have it. It is within you. It beats your heart. It sustains your life. And it is the electronic energy that comes through space to act as life to everyone upon earth, in whom is anchored and posited the threefold flame of life. Cherish then this holy inward treasure, and with it seek to magnetize understanding, because understanding does not blossom in thy heart in one moment, does not mean that it is absent from the heart of others. Because understanding does not raise the curtain upon every mystery of life in a few short years, does not mean that one day that curtain will not go up in the bonds of honor and grace as your contact with God increases, until the vista of life before you is more beautiful than your soul ever dreamed it could be. Now then, as I appeal to the mankind of earth to understand more of God to seek to fit that knowledge of light vouchsafed to them already into a framework of holy reality, I urge that men understand that this is not done without the sweat of effort, that it is not done without the constancy of diligence, that it is not done without the infiring of love. Love does not just happen. It is invited to sit upon the throne of the heart. Love is everywhere, but it is where love's power holds sway that there is a change in the vibratory action of life. When men go forth into the halls of merriment, it is as though a curtain drops round about them, and the confusion emanating from human discord and dissonance, created by the mass mind and the tarry effluvia of human substance, brings about a feeling of wretchedness at times which palls upon the soul, and the great flame is covered over, and the soul cries out for God, and God answers, but the ears are not always truly prepared to receive his answer, for they have waxed dull. And when men have first comprehended this, they have not actually realized the meaning of that word. For to wax dull is easily prepared to the consciousness as the creation of the natural wax of the ear, which will close off the auditory channels if mankind will not use caution and common sense and keep the passage of the ear clean. And therefore the inward spiritual ear also waxes dull, unless men prepare the heart by the rite of spiritual circumcision to receive the purity of God's own Spirit. The generation of a clean heart, then, comes through aspiration and desire. But desire must be amplified just as men desire to have outer things, until the purity of the law is fulfilled in the giving of the self unto God. And when the self is given unto God, and the gift is laid on the altar of inward being, then comes a period wherein the great receiver must receive the proffered gift. One cannot expect at that moment that all of the love of the Father for the prodigal son shall be manifest, for the Father must first receive the proffered gift of love and then elect to act upon it, for God has created man in his own image. And the image of God is a spiritual image of perfection. And yet that perfection holds in shape, order, and ceremony. And so when the gift is offered to God, there is a pause as the Father observes the action of the giver, and becomes then he the great receiver, giver, one who receives from the Son the gift of his love, even as the Son first received the gift of God's love. And thus there is established between the heart of God and the heart of the individual some en rapport, a tiny thread of light is woven between the shores of being, and bit by bit the strands become more and more intertwined as the attention flows to God and God's attention flows to man, and by the cable has become a great cable of light, and the holy energies of heaven flash over this cable as an electrifying net of beauty, conveying the secrets of God's heart to the heart of man. And thus man becomes no longer an ordinary one, content to walk and live as an ordinary man, but is a great aspirant of the Spirit. What is an aspirant? Break down the word to aspire and observe how that it refers to the great corkscrew spirals leading up the mountain of life to the summit of man's being, where he can perceive waiting at the end of that rising road of life the love of the Heavenly Father. All mortality, then, is a forgotten dream, and truth and beauty and service and love become held in the balance of the heart and mind. And so, as time passes, one realizes that life is immortal, and one finds at the end of that road a new beginning, a new dawn, a cosmic dawn, immortal, lovely, refreshing, and satisfying. I am content to rest in the arms of his wisdom. I am content to rest with nothing else. Call me, if you will, a brother of poverty. Call me, if you will, a divine Pavalero. It matters not to me, for I am free in his wisdom. I am free in his love. I am free in his understanding. And I hold his flame within my being. And I offer it to thee, together with my love, to assist thee on the way. Keep thy hope constant. Keep thy faith high. Keep thy vision secure. And fly from evil and all that is impure. And hold his way a righteous one, a shining path beneath the sun, where love lies firm and strong and true. It is his beauty within you. All else may fail, the world seem wrong. His love will keep you ever strong. I am the way that never fails. I am the way arising high. I am the way that shows the sky is but a doorway to on high, where shining worlds of hope are born on many and many a cosmic morn. And life is endless, ever free, and life is shining as a tree, an Eden purpose thou shalt see in all I am and hope to be, for what I am thou too canst be. I thank you. The wind of the covenant blows from Darjeeling's hills, and I think it is perhaps fitting that I should also put in an appearance here and say to you all as you go to your homes that the love of the Lord of the First Ray goes with you. This class has ended in a note of victory, and I do not think that my presence shall detract therefrom, nor that you shall have any repercussions as you reflect upon how the muffled drum of our coming is heard in your hearts as a beat of purity for the first ray. You see, precious ones, I am anxious to see mankind clasp their hands over their heart and recognize that in the beat of that heart is heard the will of God. It is God's will to make you free. It is God's will to give you your victory. And therefore, as Choan of the First Ray, I, El Morya, say, God speed thee on thy way. As you go to your homes, forget not to pray. For lo, one day you shall know me as I am. Good evening. I am come. Victory is my name, and with victory I am charged. Not only with my victory, but with the victory of life, the victory of Almighty God. I see then this planet as a jewel of immortal perfection, a diadem of magnificence, and I feel the great flame of life which pulsated in the mind of God as he conceived this holy sphere, charged with beauty and purity and light essence and iridescence and all that is perfection and cosmic charm. Why should I look and gaze at the thrusts men have made into the pool of vanity? Why should I submit to all the vicissitudes and wrong ideas of men? I shall not, and I do not expect that you shall either. O precious ones of the light, yours is a spiritual search whereby the great victory beam of your mind penetrates the miasma of mortal consciousness, and through the pall of human misery see the pure plan of the future projected on the screen of life. Yours is not to submit. Yours is not to recline in a consciousness of mortal ideas. Yours is to gaze upward to the mighty strength from on high. You have heard of old the cry that went forth, I will lift up mine eyes to the hills, for my strength cometh from the Lord, who is my helper. Well, charming ones, let me tell you that if you are to be flowers in the garden of my heart, it must be because you are willing to shine with the light of the sun and to be an immortal being even while you are yet cast in the pall of mortal shroud. You see, gracious ones, the unfailing light of God does not depend for its sustenance upon mankind and human effort. It moves effortlessly through the universe and accomplishes the pure purposes of life. You, O beloved ones, are surrounded, it is true, with all manner of mortal thoughts and arrows of hostility, but these have no power over the immortal soul and over the original divine plan. Therefore thy strength is as my strength is in the great God flame. You cannot permit yourselves to go downward in this struggle, but must always release yourself, as your beloved Saint Germain has said, from the sense of struggle, and hold inviolate in the mind of Christ, the pure mind of God, the awareness and the realization that truth is stronger than fiction. You have a saying here that truth is stranger than fiction. Well, I tell you that truth is stronger than fiction, and I repeat it for you that you may let it sink down into the channels of your hearts and feel that buoyancy which I am. I am the full buoyancy of God. I am the full radiation of His victory. I am the full consciousness of cosmic achievement. I hold then the purity of the light in my being. And as I come to you tonight, it is not in any way to glorify my person, but to glorify that light person which you are. For the reality of God is just as real, precious ones, in some individual who is not deemed worthy of notice by ordinary mankind, as it is when the mind of God flashes forth and beholds one whom the world acclaims. You see, precious ones, Almighty God considers every son of His heart equal and willing and able to fulfill the destiny of the beloved Son. There is never any limitation in the heart and mind of God concerning any individual, no matter who they are or what they may have done. For human error and human dust do not have any power over mortal mind when that mortal mind can be dashed downward as a broken vessel, and the pure flame of the soul can reach up and be the mind of Christ in healing action. The mind of Christ in healing action must be invoked. Mankind must be willing to invoke it and take the consequences thereof. When individuals are unwilling to invoke the mind of God because they wish to hide in the shadowed folds of their own lowliness of spirit, it is a great pity, for mankind will only find release from mortal suffering as they shed the consciousness of the mundane and cognize the pure flame of the Spirit. And now, precious ones, a more than ordinary action of light is about to take place in this room, For I have at first projected into the room a ray of light from on high, and from the holy Kumaras upon Venus. But now I have descended, and I am here in the very center of this room, radiating my love and my light to those students who are able to feel and to know that I am the power of God unto salvation, to those who can hold the blazing victory of the light inviolate in their being. Oh, precious ones, some do not understand the meaning even of words. When I say inviolate, I mean that no power in heaven or earth shall have any power whatsoever over that life stream, but only the power of their victory. You see, other ideas take possession of the mind, and then victory must take a back seat, and the individual must wait until it can manifest. But when other ideas take a back seat and victory comes to the fore, then there is a special action whereby that individual is given an accelerated activity to speed up their spiritual power and victory. Won't you please be seated? Now then, let us examine the world situation at the present moment, when millions of minds are focused upon the idea of world conflict and disorder, when millions of minds are determined that fear and shadow and domination are about to descend upon them, and they seek only for the protection of their own little corner of madness, then you see you have a holocaust of division, whereby the souls of men, rather than work in unison, are functioning individually in a complete dissipation of the cosmic power of Mother Earth. For mankind do loot the wondrous spiritual treasures that are vouchsafed to mankind. Think you, precious ones, that when one individual is praying unto God for the destruction of another individual, that can bring about any form of victory to any part of life. You see, however, the brothers of the shadow, by their wrong thought creations, project human discord into the minds of men through the miasma of fear. They cause individuals to have fear for their own future, when that future is securely held within individualized God victory. You see, no individual upon the planet can substitute for another insofar as karmic responsibility goes. When an individual performs a wrong act, it must fall, even the hammer of justice, before the feet of that one, and they must be brought to their knees in some cases, that they may be later raised. This is the law of being. For whatever men send out into the universe, whether it be in ignorance or in understanding, the law is impartial in the return of those currents, and mankind will one day feel and know the very lash which they employ. And those who employ the beatitudes of love and the purity of Christ's concepts and illumination, they cannot help but feel and reap and be the fullness of that which they have sent out. Therefore the path Godward, the meteoric rise in splendor, is accomplished by a sense of victory. When men can forget the delusions that have caused them only pain and suffering, and feel that every atom of their being is reflective of almighty victory, it shall bring about a change in the consciousness of that one, and this is an irrevocable law. Somehow or other, individuals have come to divide the world's thought, and I refer here to the world's religious thought, into a classification whereby individuals on the path and search for life do classify and thereby subjugate themselves to that classification. For if for some reason they find a specific religious quality is an anathema to their parents or friends, they may deign to take no notice thereof. They may decide that they will pursue another path, or perhaps pursue no path at all. This then effectively restrains them from being the beneficiaries of Almighty God's intent. But when an individual is willing to cast down from the mind which they use from day to day those towering thoughts of their own magnificence as an excellent judge, and will simply place their faith and trust and their hand in the hand of Almighty God as a child would do, then a beautiful flow of spiritual magnetism occurs in the world of that individual, and it happens almost on the instant, so that the sense of victory which I seek to convey tonight can come about quite as if by magic, as individuals begin to feel and know that they are the victory of life, and not in any other way a reflection of human thought and consciousness. Feeling must be subdued by light, for feeling oftentimes is seething emotion like a bubbling pot which somehow or other does not accomplish the purpose for which it was set to bubbling. Therefore I say to all of you, be still and be at peace. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that thou art God. Be still and know that thou art God victory. Still the human ideas and even the human ideals that have not been rooted in the purity of divine concepts. Admit into the great force field of your being the pulsations of my victory. And now tonight, as I stand here before you, vested with the spiritual power of the holy seven Kumaras, I am anxious to bestow a portion of my momentum upon those who can find in their heart recognition of the meaning of that which I speak. Be still then, as I seek to penetrate thy consciousness with a ray of victory, to impart to you a magnificent jewel, which I hope you will always wear in your heart as a token of remembrance. Then, precious one, whenever you feel inclined to human decrepitude, whenever you feel inclined to let the mind go down into the valleys of negation, you can gaze with inward eyes upon the brilliant diamond-shaped jewel which I have placed within the heart of all who can accept my love tonight, and seeing that jewel embodying a ray of imprisoned victorious splendor flashing therein, you may recall this night how that I spake unto you and urged you to accept a ray of my victory for now and forever. This is the quality I embody. This is the quality you can embody, and there is no desecration occurring therein. For the beauty of God is that whenever an individual soul desires to embody a specific divine quality and amplify that quality, not to parade it before his fellow men, but to bless and heal them with that quality, that individual can gather an accumulation thereof until, just as money is deposited in the bank and the balance continues to rise, so individuals will find that that specific divine quality is becoming more and more self-evident in their world. You see then, a thought of goodness, a thought of service, a thought of victory, a thought of purity can accomplish its purpose. And one by one, individuals can take a thought and expand it in their world until the full meaning thereof is released to them from the heart of God, who embodies all sacred qualities and is the fullness of them all. Now then, let me tell you that in my own case, I chose and elected to embody the quality of victory. And because the quality of victory flooded my being, I succeeded in winning my victory and my ascension and my freedom by the power of that single quality of love and light from the heart of God, which is almighty victory. Therefore, I did not require to externalize any other quality, for in my search for victory, I found them all and discovered their reality and used and employed them in attaining my victory. And therefore, to me, the mighty flag of cosmic victory is the most beautiful, the most wonderful, the greatest quality of all life, for it means your freedom. Your beloved Saint Germain chose to take another quality, and he expressed the flame of freedom and expanded that flame, even as I expand the flame of victory. Your beloved Paolo Veronese, the beloved Paul the Venetian, chose to expand the flame of liberty and pure love of liberty. Each individual then can choose a flame, and the beauty of it all, precious ones, is it does not make any difference whether you choose a flame that we have already honored for your own or another. For the power of expansibility in the consciousness of God is such that all of his sons and daughters may elect and choose for themselves a quality that they desire to help them on the pathway to their victory. Therefore, I do not care, precious ones, if you choose and elect to take another quality than the quality of pure victory, for it will, blessed ones, assist you to find that victory which you seek. I know that just as you have a saying that every cloud has a silver lining, so behind every appearance of less than victory, there is a little bit of victory lurking. For you see, there is no such thing as non-victory. For victory is life, and life is God, and God is victory. Therefore, you cannot make a non-God. You cannot make a non-victory. You cannot extinguish my flame now or ever, either in the universe or in yourself. Whether you accept my flame, whether you accept the pulsations of that flame, whether you realize it, whether you feel it fanning out into the atmosphere, whether or not you are aware of the angels of victory that I bring with me, it does not make one bit of difference, not one tiny bit of difference. For the time will come when every part of life, everywhere in the universe, will be compelled by the mighty advancement of life itself to accept the flame of victory which I am, to acknowledge the flame of victory which I am, to be the flame of victory which I am, and thus we will merge our flames as one in the heart of God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one God. Hear, O ye who can, all that is real, the Lord thy God is one God. Hear, O mankind of earth, let those who will beat the drums of dissonance and discord. Let them choose and elect the offbeat rhythms, that they may break up the patterns of purity. They shall rue the day that they have ill chosen, and pay the full penalty and the last farthing thereof. But there is not a soul that has set his hand to the wheel, or set his hand to the plow, who has forgotten and forsaken the ways of the world and non-victory, who has chosen to pursue the path of victory, that shall ever rue the day that he did it. For the light of God that never fails is the fullness of the victory of every individual who can feel, know, and be that which I am both now and forever. You see, O mankind of earth, the words that I am speaking to you are more than mere words. They are a release of the sacred fire essence from on high, from our planet Venus, and they are charged with the holy love of the beloved Lady Venus and the beloved Sanat Kumara. O precious ones, as I am speaking to you, the blazing light of Sanat Kumara is drawing very near, and I feel this beloved Ancient of Days as he chooses to utter the power of the sacred name of God I am from on high, and blaze a pathway from the stars down to this focus, and to see that here, where there is the temple of the unfed flame, there is a magnificent accomplishment tonight, whereby those individuals here who have so long pursued their victory, but have found some recalcitrant condition in their world which would not yield to the power of the light and would not yield to the power of their cause, must drop away from them now as they grasp the flame of victory which I am releasing here tonight, and which is the fullness of the light of God that never fails. Therefore the hand of beloved Sanat Kumara bears a blazing torch, carrying the very fire from the star of his being upon his forehead, and I am also causing the great flame of victory upon my forehead to raise 3 times to its normal height, that men may feel the ultra release of that flame of victory into their world, and that they may choose thereby to magnify it in the world itself, which so solemnly tonight needs more sense of victory and less sense of defeat. Oh, precious ones, it is so strange that mankind must continually be enthralled by the senses and think that the very living and blazing realities of God are a mere figment of the imagination. Why, I tell you, precious ones, we could burst out laughing and laugh forever if it were not so serious a matter. But it is a serious matter for the individuals who do not understand that the great pall of ignorance which clouds their mind must be dissipated by the light of transcendent truth. Therefore I say to you all tonight, with joy and with happiness, cast aside and discard your human reason that tells you that I do not exist. For there are some individuals who have some doubts of my reality as a being, for they come from other religious activities, and they are not familiar with my name, they are not familiar with my reality. I hold nothing against them for this, but I assure them that if they will call upon me for the next 7 days and recognize that there is a very strong possibility that I am real, that I will make every attempt to cross the valley that they have created in their consciousness and bridge the chasm of shadow with a release of some specific accomplishment in their world which they have longed for some time. I will do this as a token of regeneration. I will do this in order to assist their faith to mount up as on eagle wings. I will do this in order to produce greater harmony in the world by enlarging the borders of the kingdom of God. This is our will. This is the will of God. This is the will of the great white brotherhood. This is the mighty challenge of life. This is the purification of the world of man. For man has made his world a very muddied one indeed, and the impure colors which are worn today by many among mankind must yield to the beautiful pastels and the radiance of the rainbow rays, and the power of victory in life must become more physically self-evident, that the example set before the youth and the children of the world and the purity of light may be manifest not only here but elsewhere upon the planetary body. Then shall the great scientific accomplishments of our beloved planet Venus be made known unto the earth, and man shall understand how they can perform great surgery and services of light by spiritual light rays. They shall understand how that they will no longer need to employ the old techniques which will be aborted by the inrush of new and victorious accomplishments in every field of human endeavor, and specifically in the realm of the spirit, where men must learn that the spirit can conquer dust and flood forth for now and all time to come the ascension light that frees mankind both now and forever. And I call your attention tonight as a summoning of regeneration to hold now an image in thought and in feeling of Bethany's Hill. I have asked the angel of record, responsible for the recording of the ascension of your beloved Jesus, to bring that record into this force field tonight and to see that there is released the ascension energies of that ascension of beloved Jesus into the atmosphere here. that you may experience in the inner realm some action that will assist you to attain your own ascension. Therefore, as they are readying the playing of this specific record through great cosmic recording mechanisms, I would like to have you pass through the great ritual drama of his ascension in the light. Will you stand now, therefore, in the consciousness that by uprightness of heart, mankind are able to assimilate uprightness of spirit? God is upright, and when men ascend, they do so because they have cast off the old and filthy garments of mortal thought and have changed them by the power of the sacred fire into the great victory of life flowing through their atoms. And therefore the flesh forms of man feel the mighty light rays of God removing the old, tired, fatigued state of consciousness from the being, and seeing that the roseate hue of the dawn of spiritual victory flows through the blood, changing the blood into liquid golden light. Then the mighty fire of the heart, breaking forth from the chalice thereof, surges with the golden light of victory. Then this beautiful golden light pours through the hands, and the light rays, directed downward toward the earth, release the hold of gravity, and the beautiful Christ consciousness raises upward from the ground, first a half an inch, then an inch, then a foot, then 3 feet, then 7 feet, then 12 feet, and then on and on and on, until the great cloud of spiritual light, the substance from on high, the sacred fire jewel from the heart of God, the chariot of fire, has raised Elijah, descends and bears that Christed victorious one out of physical sight. This occurred then with your beloved Jesus, and he said, "Lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the age." And so the angels descended and said, "This same Jesus, whom ye saw ascend into heaven, shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him ascend." And the victory of life has produced this perfection, for he has descended many times since, and has manifested his beautiful luminous presence unto mankind in many parts of the world. And the prophecy has been fulfilled, and will be again, and again, and again. And one day, as each of you win the victory of your ascension as he did, you will know the bond of spiritual brotherhood as he did. You will understand the healing touch of his hand. You will understand the power of light's band. You will understand the power that thrusts through and is your victory, the victory of you and you. Each one then must attain for self the reality of life. Each one must put an end to mortal strife. Each one must purify themselves and be the essence, the life, the love of my victory. Your victory, then, is my victory. When each one of you attain for yourself the victory of life, you become as I am, and I am as you are in reality now. For precious ones, you think perhaps that you are less than perfect now. Nay, I say, the image of Almighty God, which he held of thee as thou camest forth from the pure white fire essence, the white fire core of life, is still the same today, yesterday, and forever. It is the changeless garment that you need never change. It is the changeless radiance that you would not change or part with. It is the great truth of life and the reality that ends for every life stream all struggle and sense thereof. It is the blessing of life when men begin to experience a new birth in higher octaves and go on to become illustrious in the mind of God. For what is here on earth is but a beginning. a tender beginning, and all that is here of pain and suffering and sorrow is but an ending, flashing forth of mortality, that on the morrow the beauty and purity of the new page, the new beginning, may be made known. And then, as you begin to live in the consciousness of the throne of power and victory over yourself, you will know the meanings of the words that we caused to be put upon the temples of old, the ancient inscription, "Man, know thyself." I say to thee tonight, with the power of Serapis, who has also flashed forth his consciousness and stands beside me upon this platform, I say also, with the power of an ascension action for 3 individuals in this room, it shall occur within the next 10 years. And I do not choose to have it hovering over you as a point of speculation, and therefore I have increased the range, that you may not know what I mean. That the ascension currents are spiraling up here from the temple of the unfed flame, and you may bask in this radiance, and set yourselves free, as I am free. You shall be free, as all should be free, as we shall see together in our great victory that is to come. The victory that cannot be denied, the victory that cannot be decried, the victory that shall be, is now, and is to come. Man, know thyself. Man, know that we are all one. Man, know that God is manifestation. That manifestation, when correctly understood and accepted, is God. That God is victory. That the simultaneous action of freedom is instituted here then as it is elsewhere. That many souls now in captivity may go free. That the light of God and its strength may become the light of men. Wait not long, and thou shalt see. For victory is to the strong, as victory is to the free. I thank you, and I bid you adieu.